Hello, hello. This is Danielle Pacey, the executive producer of Debate the News podcast. And today we are branching out. Debate the News is branching out, and we are going DTN True Crime. And this episode is a little sneak peek of what to expect for this new avenue of branding. So enjoy.
Discussion are unintentional. We value respect and open dialogue. And thank you in advance to all of those accepting co-hosts to join in on the conversation. And as always, we highly encourage all audience members to participate. And lastly, while true crime may captivate the public, it is important to remember that at the heart of every case is someone who is no longer with us. Today, we remember Kaylee Anthony.
Circuit Court for the Ninth Judicial Circuit in and for Orange County, Florida. State of Florida versus Casey Marie Anthony. As to case number 2008 CF 15606-0. As to the charge of first-degree murder, verdict as to count 1. We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty, so say we all, dated at Orlando, Orange County, Florida, on this 5th day of July, 2011, signed foreperson. As to the charge of aggravated child abuse, verdict as to count 2. We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty. So say we all, dated at Orlando, Orange County, Florida, this 5th day of July, 2011, signed foreperson. As to the charge of aggravated manslaughter of a child, verdict as to count 3. We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty. So say we all, dated at Orlando, Orange County, Florida, this 5th day of July, 2011, signed foreperson. As to the charge of providing false information to a law enforcement officer, verdict as to count 4. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of providing false information to a law enforcement officer as charged in the indictment. So say we all, dated Orlando, Orange County, Florida, this 5th day of July, 2011, signed foreperson. As to the charge of providing false information to a law enforcement officer, verdict as to count 5. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of providing false information to a law enforcement officer as charged in the indictment. So say we all, dated Orlando, Orange County, Florida, this 5th day of July, 2011, signed foreperson. As to the charge of providing false information to a law enforcement officer, verdict as to count 6. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of providing false information to a law enforcement officer as charged in the indictment. So say we all, dated Orlando, Orange County, Florida, this 5th day of July, 2011, signed foreperson. As to the charge of providing false information to a law enforcement officer, verdict is to count 7. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of providing false information to a law enforcement officer as charged in the indictment. So say we all, dated Orlando, Orange County, Florida, this 5th day of July, 2011, signed foreperson.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first ever Behind the Verdict DTN True Crime Edition room on Chatter. I am Joseph, joined by my wonderful co-host Adrian and our guide Diana Rosero. Today we dive into the disappearance of Kaylee Anthony, a heartbreaking and controversial case that rocked the United States of America. Adrian has a personal connection to the Anthony family, which we'll actually discuss later. We did not pre-discuss our thoughts on this case, so everything you hear is going to unfold live, unfiltered. A reminder, true crime involves real people, so this is a respectful, opinion-based discussion. Kaylee Anthony was last seen June 16th, 2008 at her grandparents' home. Casey claimed Kaylee was with a nanny, but it later turned out that no nanny existed. Then on July 15th, Kaylee was reported missing by her grandmother, Cindy Anthony.
July 16th, Casey arrested for child neglect and lying. In August, new charges were filed. In October, the grand jury indicts Casey on multiple counts, including first-degree murder. Casey pleads not guilty, while Kaylee is still missing.
On December 11th, 2008, Kaylee's remains are found in a wooded area. The cause of death is determined to be homicide, but an exact method is undetermined. She was found with duct tape wrapped around her mouth and in trash bags.
During the pretrial, the jury selection moved to Clearwater to ensure impartiality. That's about an hour and a half away. In May of 2011, the trial begins. Prosecution argues Casey murdered Kaylee with chloroform and duct tape. The defense claims accidental drowning and a cover-up by George Anthony. Sexual abuse allegations made.
In total, the prosecution called 59 witnesses. Cadaver dogs detected human decomposition in Casey's trunk. That's one of the things that the prosecutor's case put forth. There were high chloroform levels and duct tape presented as evidence, and photos of Casey Anthony partying during the time of Kaylee's disappearance are shown to the jury.
For the defense case, 47 defense witnesses challenged forensic evidence and duct tape as murder weapons, and they claimed Casey lied due to trauma.
So Casey Anthony's involvement in the disappearance and death of her daughter, Kaylee Anthony, was marked by a series of falsehoods and deceptive behaviors that significantly impeded the investigation. Later, we'll get to a list of what some of those lies were, but those were a lot of things that were brought up in the trial. So, to the verdict and sentencing. On July 5th, 2011, Casey Anthony was found not guilty on charges of murder, child abuse, or manslaughter. She was found guilty on 4 counts of lying to the police. She was released on July 17th after time served for good behavior.
Post-trial, there were new developments. Casey Anthony, Where the Truth Lies, was released in 2022. That's where Casey claims, TV, that she last saw Kaylee alive in her bed on June 15th of 2008. She claims her father was holding a limp, wet Kaylee the next morning and told her everything would be fine. Believed Kaylee was alive during 31 days and points to George Anthony as responsible for Kaylee's death and suggests abuse cover-up.
Then, to follow that up, there was a television special that Casey Anthony's parents participated in. It was called Casey Anthony's Parents, the Lie Detector Test. This aired January of 2024. George and Cindy Anthony denied all abuse allegations made by Casey and deny any involvement in Kaylee's disappearance. Both of them took a lie detector test and passed with, quote, no deception indicated, end quote. And just a reminder that polygraph tests are not admissible in court, so they do remain controversial in the in certain communities about how reliable they are or not.
So, Joe,
So,
you
Adrian,
ready to talk? Yes.
what to you, what is the most shocking part about this entire case for you?
So the shocking part, if I didn't know George and Cindy Anthony, it would be the crazy amount of lies that she was telling her parents during the time that she then claimed Kaylee was missing, which is awful. And then the lies that she actually would tell the police officers. Joseph, I can't even begin to imagine what was happening in her head and, why she would tell some of these falsehoods.
Yeah, I agree with you. What do you want to go over some of these falsehoods since we're on the topic?
find it very interesting. So yes, let's do that.
All right, so first we have she lied to authorities about working at Universal Studios. I thought that was interesting. She claimed she worked there. She led detectives all the way to the site. She literally brought them to Universal Studios when they said, "Okay, can we see your offices?" or something like that. And then once they got there and she realized, okay, like the jig is up, she admitted, okay, I don't actually really work here.
And Joseph, think of all the people that are like, why is she coming in and kind of like a princess wave to everyone? Hey, how are you? Nice to see you. So the staff was really confused. And you're right, at the end of the hallway, when she turned and said, no, I don't work. I mean, I think that the officers must have been out of their mind. And of course, a lot of it was like wasted time. Let's go to the next one.
So the next one is Zanny the nanny. She told authorities that Kaylee had last been seen with a nanny um, named Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez. And it turned out that Casey Anthony had never hired a nanny. Kaylee was never with a nanny. And the person whose name uh, Casey Anthony gave was never employed by her. I think she was a real person, but she was never employed by Casey Anthony. She never Kaylee was never under her care. It was just a complete lie. She just made up a caretaker.
And the crazy part about that is, first of all, everyone was like Zanny the nanny. Well, maybe that made sense. Maybe she was using Xanax. But poor Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez, who actually is a real live person that does exist, and all of a sudden she is now getting death threats and she is scared because like she's being accused of something that she has, so she has to defend herself on a case that she has no involvement. So my heart goes out to Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez.
Absolutely. She had no idea what was even going on, what they were even talking about. So these detectives actually, I think, tracked her down and she was like, "What are you talking about? I have no idea. I'm not in charge of care for this child." Um, some of the other things is she she lied about where Kaylee was. She lied about efforts that she was searching for her. Um, she even misled her boyfriend at the time, Tony, and told him the same lie about the nanny. So throughout a lot of this time, um, prior to Kaylee's prior to the police getting involved, her boyfriend, her parents, friends, they were all told this same lie. They were all under the impression that Kaylee was under the care of this nanny.
It's so sad. And imagine being the grandparents, George and Cindy Anthony, and asking, "Where's Kaylee?" and being consistently told one excuse at the other. And Cindy asking, "Well, let me speak to her. Let me say hello. Let me see a picture." And none of that was given to the grandmother and the grandfather. And also lying to her boyfriend. That I thought was really crazy to Tony, right? To say that Kaylee's with a nanny. And it's a very interesting interview that they had with Tony because he admitted that he was curious. He wanted to know where she was, but he had no idea. And he believed Kaylee. I mean, he believed Casey.
Exactly, because why wouldn't you? That's an insane lie to make up. And another thing that was in the press a lot when this trial was going on was these pictures of Casey Anthony out partying. Pictures of her in the club, dancing, all during this time period where her daughter was missing. And that particularly, at least in the press in the United States, really rubbed people the wrong way because they're like, your daughter is missing. Why are you out drinking and partying and taking photos and posting them on social media? It just seemed like a completely inappropriate reaction for someone who is genuinely concerned about their missing child.
100% Joseph. Also, let's all just lay it on the table right now. Casey Anthony is a beautiful girl, beautiful figure, beautiful face, and she knew how to wear those dresses. And she always looked very pretty going out. And she's also at an age of wanting to enjoy her life. And so that's why we saw a lot of those pictures with her rubbing against other people and absolutely looking like she was having the time of her life, which we want most of our 19 and 20-year-olds to actually do in their life. Have a great time.
Absolutely. Just not when your, child is missing and you're claiming that you're so concerned. A little uh, doesn't make a lot of sense. But Adrian, do you want to get into discussing your personal connection to the Anthony family?
I would love to. So here's a story. I moved to Celebration in 2006 with a baby, Alana. And so when 2008 hit, Alana was 2. And I think at the time, Kaylee was 3. But before Kaylee went missing, another little boy had gone missing. And the little boy, we never found where he was. And the mother had actually shot herself in her grandmother's closet. During the time that that boy was missing, I kept thinking to myself, "Oh my God, I should be doing something. What can I do? What can I do?" And honestly, nothing really came to me. But when Kaylee, with her beautiful, beautiful face, and if you guys remember her big brown eyes, and of course I have the daughter that's about the same age, I was like, I have to do something. And things come to me very quickly. So it came to me, I could create postcards. So I immediately called Minuteman Press in Kissimmee and I said, "Hey, how much would it be if we did 1,500 postcards for the family of little Kaylee Anthony? She is missing right now. And I will provide all the artwork." So, our art department at the time, John did all the artwork for both the front and the back. It was a big size card. I ended up ordering 5,000 of these postcards and I delivered them to their home. And so, and actually, when I went to their home, I was very nervous, by the way. And there were cameras, and I never saw like the big RVs. So the TV stations that were there, they weren't small. They were in these big, oversized, trucks. And actually, when I delivered the box of postcards and I came back into my car, I had a friend with me and she said, "Look to the right." And when I looked to the right, one of the guys had a camera in his hand. And I smiled and I didn't mean to smile. I was all nervous, but I will tell you, sometimes you don't know how you're going to react in those situations. And then I really didn't think much about it. I'll never forget this. And then, sorry. And then about 4 days later, I got a phone call and it was from George Anthony. And he said, "Adrian, this is Kaylee Anthony's grandfather, George Anthony. And I want to thank you for what you did. And we just want to come over. Cindy and I want to come over and we want to say hello to you. And, the fact that you would just reach out and do this for us was very beautiful. And we would like to say thank you." And so during this time, I went to the office and I said to the team, "Listen, because, I didn't tell everyone, oh, I'm going to do this. Like I didn't make it a big deal, right? I called Minute Man Press and then I, had the art department. I did all that with, not telling anyone. So I wanted to say to them, the George and Cindy Anthony are coming in and, please close your door if you feel that this is something that you don't want them to, talk to you. I will tell you that every staff member left their door open, which I thought was a beautiful thing. At this point, we didn't know she was just missing. And that's where the relationship with George and Cindy Anthony grew. But I also want to share another thing. I mean, picture yourself as a grandmother and grandfather and your daughter gets pregnant at a young age and she's now living with you and your daughter is the pride. They have a son, and but your daughter is your daughter and your granddaughter is your granddaughter, and they are your pride and joy, and they just bring so much joy. So when George and Cindy had come to the office to meet me, my husband didn't know that they were there, and he came and he brought Alana, who, remember, was 2 years old. So she was walking, and I'll never forget this. George Anthony got down and did a squat, which was amazing because he's probably was probably in his 60s. He did a beautiful squat, and he looked at my daughter right in the eyes, and he introduced himself, and he was just so beautiful. You know how like kindness can ooze out of you. It just oozed out of him, and honestly. And there's nothing wrong with this, but not a lot of adults get down to this level of a 2-year-old to say hello and to greet them. Usually you're waving or something like that. It was really beautiful. And Cindy, I fell in love with her immediately. There was a connection right there. And from that I mean, I just fell in love with them. So of course, what would you do? You would say, what else can I do for you? What are the things that we can do to help you? And so we talked about that and about how we can help. And Georgia, Cindy, Anthony, came to the office many times, met my mom and dad. My parents were very loving to them. And, it was very difficult, by the way. I want you guys to understand they literally live just like you do, a nice neighborhood. Like nothing like this would happen. George was security guard at the Celebration, Florida. We were in the 215 building. He took care of the 210 building. And if you know Celebration, the town that Disney built, a lot of Disney people are in the building. George was very well liked, very well respected. Cindy was a nurse working hard. They were average people. They didn't know what it would be like to have all of this attention on them. Not all of a sudden, not only do they have all this attention, but you've got all the reporters on the street. And then you've got the neighbors upset. Like it's George and Cindy's fault that all these the media is there, and the media is just like really kind of knocking down the walls and trying to speak to them, and all their movements now are being watched. And so that's kind of the first step of what was going on, Joseph. And the other thing was, they brought me in when they brought in, and I can't remember the name, but one of the guys that does the he goes and finds kids. So he's out of Texas and he does the search. So I had a meeting with them. We were really trying to figure out how else we can help. At the time, my husband was working part-time. Could Alan, help them with the boating and going over there? Like, where could we help? We had a mobile messaging truck. Can we put Kaylee on the side of the truck so that we had, which we did, so that we could drive that through downtown Orlando and through the area so we could keep Kaylee on everyone's mind. At the time, they did wristbands. It was all about awareness that Kaylee was missing. Back to you, Joseph. If you have any questions.
No, I just want to say, I feel I can't even imagine what that would be like to go through, because it's first their granddaughter is missing, then, their daughter is getting arrested for it. They don't know what's going on. Then they find out their granddaughter has died. Then throughout the trial, part of Casey Amity's defense really revolved around placing blame and some accusations on the father specifically. So I just can't even imagine what that would be like to go through, especially underneath the spotlight of the American media. I mean, there were people camping outside their house, waiting for them to leave, taking pictures. There were protesters with picket signs. I mean, I can't even imagine how overwhelming that must have been for them.
And Joseph, one thing that you may not think of, the people that were doing all of what you said, 100% true, also left all their garbage. So if they ate something, they literally just threw the wrapper. They had zero respect. And one of the meetings that we had, my husband said, George, why don't you just take your water hose and why don't you spray the people? If they are on your property, because there's like that fine line of like what's public property and what's not. So if they went over that line, so Alan, it was a really great advice. Why don't you just spray them? And then that night on the news, we watched and George did exactly that. And that helped to move them a little, backwards. But he was so mad. He said to me, he was just so embarrassed and mad that people would be treating them like this. And they were always conscious of the people around them, their neighbors that, got into this but yet they didn't do anything wrong. So yeah, you're 100% right, Joseph. Really stressful for them. And also, by the way, when I met Cindy in the beginning when she was missing, and it was very much in the beginning, Cindy was thin and trim and a beautiful woman. I mean, if you look at her face, she was truly beautiful. George, handsome as can be. And the last time I saw them, it was just the stress really takes you down. You could see it in their face and their weight, everything. It is the saddest thing is, I got to meet them when they didn't know and they were still kind of innocent and just hoping that maybe Kaylee was just at somewhere, right? Like that she would show up. So that always bothered me and stays with me.
Yeah, and I've never met them. I don't have a personal relationship with them, but I have seen a lot of interviews, watched a lot of documentaries, and they do seem like lovely people who just wanted to find their granddaughter. And that comes to my next question, Adrian. Based on what you know of the case, based on your personal relationship with the family, how do you feel about the case and the verdict? Casey Anthony was found not guilty um, when it came to the count of first degree murder. She was only convicted of lying to the police. So, what do you think? Do you agree with that verdict
So let me
or
set
not?
the stage. I'm going to set the
Right.
stage because what happened was life is so crazy, right? So all of a sudden, I get in the mail that I have to show up for jury duty in Kissimmee, Florida. Their case was in the Clearwater area. So I had to show up for this jury duty. And it turns out that it's a first degree murder case. And at one point, George Anthony called me. He said, Adrian, we're doing this service. They had found Casey. Now remember, there was all these steps, right? First the missing, and then the car, and it smells like a dead body in the car. All of these were like steps that kind of like took place. And then all of a sudden, they found the body. So George called me. I'll never forget this. And he said, Adrian, I got a seat right here in the front for you. I want you to come in. I want you to sit with us for the service. And I said, George, you won't believe it. I'm serving on a first degree murder case in Kissimmee. And I believe, George, that I hope that all the jurors that are going to end up being, picked for the case will be as dedicated to the truth as I will be. So as much as I want to be there, it would be completely 100% absolutely wrong for me not to miss jury duty. Like I would not do that because of our civic duty, by the way, which we all have. But so I never got to go to that service, which has really hurt me. I also now am involved in a first degree murder case trial, and we were a hung jury. So I'm as it's what's playing out in real life is happening to me in real life. We were a hung jury. We tried, and I just want to share one thing. When we had to go, we were like a round robin of all different people, right? I always say I was a token Jew. So when we couldn't come up, I really thought that in this case that I'm talking about that was taking place in Kissimmee, I thought that he was guilty, but that there was the burden of proof was not there and there was no proof. And so I was, not guilty. There were six that were guilty. And the judge said something that, again, like a lesson in life. He said, no matter how, like, if you thought that he was not guilty, I want you to go back into the room and argue opposite of what you believe. And that was really good. So I went back in and I was all for, arguing, okay, no, he's guilty and like trying to go over that. Sadly, a lot of the jurors were too tired and they just didn't want to deal with that. So they, which I thought was crazy, but like we're all different in life. So as much as I'm like, let's stay, let's do this. We need to do this. Cause I'm thinking of, Kaylee and George and Cindy. We got back and it was a hung jury, which was really, really sad for me, but it gave me the thought of what was going on. So, who, there were so many lies that you knew that something was going on, right? And I knew the heart of George and Cindy Anthony, but I wasn't ready at that point of time to really like think. But when the case, just so you know, when the verdict came in, because I think that again, there wasn't the burden of proof was not addressed. So there was just not enough proof. But the gas that was felt around the world and and if you want to google it, there's videos of the people just like in shock. People were upset, they were mad, they felt that, again, this is my opinion, they felt that oh, a murderer is free. And then she still had to go to jail. She had to finish her time that she had. But it was the talk of the conversation. Everyone was talking about it. It really was at this point. You couldn't lift the paper up. You couldn't talk to anyone without it being a discussion and very, active in celebration. Everyone was talking about it. Does that answer your question, Joseph? Because I really didn't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Even after all this time, I'm kind of still at that point. I don't know. I think that during the trial, I think that the prosecution presented a very strong case. I also think the defense presented a strong defense. Ultimately, I respect the jury's decision. Whether I think they got it right or not, I have to respect that she was found not guilty on those charges. And I can kind of understand how they got there because it still to this day isn't clear how Kaylee died, how her body got where it was. Those questions are still unanswered. So I understand why a jury um, could not convict her on that murder charge beyond a reasonable doubt.
By the way, Joseph, Jose Baez, the attorney, right? He didn't have a name for himself. He was, like a no-name attorney, took the case. It was absolute torture to listen. I wasn't, in the courtroom, but to actually hear that, because everything was televised. And I mean, George and Cindy had no idea what was being thrown at them. So the whole, pool situation and what Casey was saying at the time, and imagine being in court and all of a sudden you're being accused of something, and like all of that was really crazy. And people were like, who is this guy, right? He's got a nice looking face. Jose Baez, seems like a nice guy. Which, by the way, if you ever look, it's interesting to look at what Jose Baez was able to charge before and then after. I mean, now he made a name for himself. So, all of this is circulating in all of our heads. While George, after that trial, George really was just suffering so badly. Just, not with just how harmful that is to your reputation and your psyche, right? To be accused of something when all you did was love your daughter and granddaughter to the end of the earth. You would do anything for them, and so they were really like thrown a big loop in that one, Joseph.
Yeah, absolutely. She very much during the trial and even still now, I think to this day, very much pointed the finger at George Anthony. And since then, as we reference the Casey Anthony's parents' lie detector test, they're still pointing the finger right back at her and saying, no, we didn't have anything to do with this. And I think they've stated publicly pretty clearly that they believe that she was responsible. So it's the whole thing is just tragic. And at the end of the day, a 2 year old child is dead, and no one has really been brought to justice for her death. So it's just a tragedy all the way around. Um, I was thinking maybe we can open up the discussion to our audience and see if anyone else has wants to weigh in. What are their thoughts about the case? What are their thoughts about the verdict? Would anyone like to jump in on that?
Yes, I just want to ask a couple questions real quick. Um, does anybody know where to get chloroform? Where do you get chloroform from?
I think that you can also make chloroform. So if I'm correct, I think that there was a Google of chloroform on the computer, and they were questioning Cindy, who is a nurse, but there was someone had in the home had looked into the computer to find out where to either buy chloroform or how to make chloroform. Anyone have that answer regarding the chloroform?
That is a good question. I have absolutely no idea where to get chloroform. I wouldn't even know where to begin with that.
All right. Also, the second question would be the duct tape. The duct tape. Did they realize how long she was duct taped, or was she duct taped when she died? Like how did that go?
So that's actually a point of contention. Earlier, when I was giving the intro, I think I said the duct tape was around her mouth. I'm going to actually walk that back. There was duct tape found, I think, near the skull, but I think it's still a point of contention whether or not the duct tape was actually wrapped around her mouth, whether it was used to seal the trash bags. I don't think we have a clear answer about the duct tape.
I think Joseph. So just to be a little clear, that time of year, there's a lot of swamp area. So where they lived up close to the Orlando International Airport, a lot of wetland, right? And then of course a lot of animals, as you all know, in Florida. So you have the weather, you have the swamp water, and all of that. So the body was really deteriorated. From what I heard, Joseph, again, this is what I heard, that it was story really goes that it was around the nose and mouth, and so that was how it was found. And she was wrapped in a sweet blanket that was recognizable by Cindy, that it was her daughter's blanket, and that she bought for her granddaughter.
So, I mean, the natural question for that would be, all right, if the person has duct tape around their mouth or whatever, right? Then why would they use chloroform? Like, why would they duct tape them if they use chloroform to kill them?
So I think,
Chloroform
oh,
wasn't used to kill. Chloroform was used to put them to sleep. That's how you knock someone out.
That's how you knock somebody out or you kill them.
No,
So
no, no,
how was that?
no.
So how was she killed?
No, so the theory, I'll just like say the word theory. The theory is that Casey wanted to party. And so she was using chloroform to knock her child out, and that she had put her child maybe in the back of the car or maybe in the trunk. Remember, Cindy had called when Cindy found out that her daughter was really missing, and Kaylee and Casey admitted it to the 911 call. Cindy said, I just got our daughter's car and it smells like a dead body in the car. Now, crazy enough, Dr. Henry Lee, a forensic scientist, and by the way, a bestie to my father, Dr. Henry Lee and my father were very close together, like brothers from another mother, because my dad were Connecticut, and Dr. Lee had he taught forensic science in New Haven, Connecticut, in Southern Connecticut State University. He was actually, this was part of what he was looking at. They found some traces of chloroform in the trunk of the car. So the theory was always that she maybe used too much. Kaylee, passed away, and Casey didn't know what to do. She drove around for a few days. The body decomposed. They found some, body fluid in the car too. And then she dumped her daughter's body. This is all, again, this is opinion, and this is what I've read. And, and this is, talking to other people. And which, by the way, I wanted to say one thing, Joseph. I want to just take a bit, while all of this was making the news, and of course it was all over. I mean, Nancy Grace had it on every single night. It was all over. I read all the comments. It was interesting. I do want to say that most of the people that were commenting, most of the people that commented after I think it was Peacock's show, after I think Lifetime, after A&E, like all these shows, most people totally were upset that she is free. And we're really saying that that she, again, a lot of people's opinion was that she was a murderer. I'm talking about Casey Anthony. So I just wanted to bring that up.
I think it was done by a professional. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know if she did it, but I think it was done by a professional. If she did Google it, she had experience doing something like this before, because this is a cold-hearted killing, and it
Oh,
was
so
used
you
with
confused me to God.
professional tools. It
Wait, so
was
when you're
something.
saying professional, what is when you so you confused? I just want to be clear for everyone in the audience. You're saying professional. I'm thinking you're meaning like someone outside of Casey Anthony, but you're saying a professional, and then you're kind of, in your opinion, you're saying that Casey Anthony, and you're kind of giving her that like quote unquote professional. Is that
No, I'm not.
correct?
I don't think she's a professional at all. I'm
Oh.
thinking that the person that did it was a professional.
Wait, so you're saying that Casey Anthony is not responsible?
I'm saying I don't know. It just sounds like the cold-hearted nature of the way the child was found. It seems like somebody that actually had experience doing killings before.
The child was found too, right in the same neighborhood. Okay, which means that the killer was comfortable there. All right. They also, in addition to that, there was a cadaver dogs hit on the back of the trunk of Casey Anthony's car, and they found some bodily fluids there in the car, showing that it was a cadaver there. So once again, and then, bro, the girl lied. She even lied about working at Universal Studio. I remember watching a video of them walking with her to Universal to Studio, walking in the back. She act like she knew people, and they looking at her like, "Who the hell is this?" And they walking with her, and finally she got to a door, and she turned around and she admitted that she didn't work there. Okay, and then she's talking about Zandy, the nanny, had her kid. You're gonna know who had your child. I'm sorry, to God, if you're a parent, you're gonna know who has your child. And then they found no reference of a Zanny the nanny. Zanny the nanny never existed. So when you say a professional, it was sloppy as hell. You don't dump in the same neighborhood, um, and all those lies that followed it. That wasn't professional. Just wanted to put that out
I'm
there.
talking about the duct tape, the garbage. The,
I never believed that Casey Anthony killed her kid.
Oh, conspiracy theory. Let's hear it, Grant. Let's hear it.
She's been acquitted, right?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes.
There you go. She's out of jail. She was found guilty incorrectly. Jury was wrong, and she's free.
So Grant's making a good point.
I never thought that she killed her child.
Grant's making a good point. Grant, I want to just say it's Adrian, by the way. Grant is making a good point. He's right. The juror did not find her guilty. And remember, Jose Baez also made these like claims that there were things going on. So a lot of people weren't. Now they're confused, right? Like a whole idea in a court case is let's confuse the jurors. And so in this case, the prosecutors didn't do that great of a job, but they also were blindsided. They did not know about the pool. That the defense was going to use some of the things that was all hidden from George and Cindy Grant. I don't know if you were here in the beginning. I happened to be friends with George and Cindy Anthony, so and not that they gave me an inside view. It gave me an insight to their heart, but also I really like watch a story like a hawk. So I understand you're 100% right, and there's because at the end of the day, none of us really know exactly what happened. But I do believe George Anthony had nothing to that he was not sexual with his daughter. So some of the things that was being said during the trial, guys, just so you understand, things are being said during the trial, okay? And these what was being said George hadn't heard about it before. There was no like letting him know, hey, we're going to bring this up and that up. That was all like out of the blue. So imagine how that would feel. But I think that we have to recognize what God's saying, what Grant's saying, or any of you that may want to say, you know what, we don't know. And yes, she is out. And by the way, Joseph and I and Diana and Jonathan, we're being very careful right now because if you Google Casey Anthony and TikTok, she is now a legal analyst for TikTok. I did not know there was a position, and she has already claimed that she is going to file a lawsuit against anyone that's saying things about her. So we made a disclaimer. We're going to make sure that everyone is careful that these are opinions that are being said because she now wants and if that's what she wants to do, she's going to have a hard time with it. But she is a very pretty girl, and right now she is, saying exactly that. That if you start saying anything about her, she will find out, and she probably will listen to this podcast. And so, making sure that we're all very careful with what we say.
Oh my God! You don't need to worry about her doing anything to you. You
So,
can't, guys.
so
You
Gr-
can't run around suing everybody. She got convicted of murder. For a moment, she was a murderer. She's
no,
been
she was never
acquitted.
convicted, Grant. I think you got it wrong. She never was
No,
convicted.
no, I thought she spent 3 years in prison.
No, it was for like tampering with evidence. She was convicted of other things, but not
Oh,
murder.
okay.
Yeah,
So I take that back.
she was officially found not guilty on the charges of murder, child abuse, and manslaughter, but she was convicted on 4 counts of lying to police.
Yeah. Well, shit. I mean, Jonathan would lie to the police. He probably has. Marty, I know, is a damn, compulsive liar to the police. So what's the big deal?
Everybody allowed to 12.
Let's go, man.
On
I
the
know one
do.
thing. I don't know who she killed or if she killed anybody, but I just killed Vegas for the last 4 days.
You did.
So, yeah, he sure did. Listen, you guys. So, to God, thank you so much for starting us off with that brilliant question. And, it, that, the chloroform, is that what it's called? The chloroform that you asked about, it's actually made with nail polish and bleach. So I wanted to know if Adrian and Joseph knew about that. So chloroform can be synthesized using household chemicals like acetone, which is what's found in nail polish remover, and bleach. The process is called, I believe, the halo form, if I'm saying that correctly, the halo form reaction. It involves mixing these in specific conditions and distilling the rest. In this specific case, the prosecution suggested that this possibility was due to all of the computer searches that they found. So I wanted just to bring that to the table. It seems like absolutely anybody can create this. So thank you to God again, and I'm passing it back to Joseph.
Yeah, and also during the trial, the prosecution presented evidence that there were high levels of chloroform found in Casey Anthony's trunk, the trunk of her car. So that they tried to tie to her as well.
And there was evidence of body decomposition in the back of her car. Also, I'm really curious to hear anybody's opinion on the boyfriend, which Julie mentioned in the chat. And I remember this coming up. I just recently watched like all the documentaries on her after she tried to go on TikTok, which she's no longer on TikTok. Everyone got her booted off of TikTok. Um, the first thing she wanted to do was call the boyfriend. Now, there was a woman who she spent time with while she was in prison who allegedly claimed that Casey told her the story of what actually happened. Zanny, the nanny, was actually Xanax. This is what the cellmate or jailmate allegedly said. Xanax, Casey would give her daughter Xanax before going out. And she claimed that that night she gave her some, gave her too much, and she died. And the body was too far into the decomposition for them to even test. There was no way of them being able to test if there was any drugs or anything in the baby's system. So I don't know, but did the boyfriend have something to do with it? I think to an extent he did. I really do. She was very um it was like an urgent thing that she wanted to talk. The first thing she wanted to talk to was her boyfriend. Like, why are you wanting to talk to him at that point in time when you're in jail, your daughter's missing? It was just a little weird to me. But I mean, this was probably like the biggest ball drop that I've ever witnessed. She definitely did it.
And it's interesting that you bring up the boyfriend because, yeah, his position consistently has been that he had nothing to do with it. He genuinely believed that there was this nanny that was caring for Kaylee. And he actually said on record on a documentary that from his view, she was an amazing mom and she loved her daughter. So it's so interesting the contrast of how people in Casey's life viewed her and viewed her relationship with her child and her as a mother versus the reality.
By the way, Joseph, I just want to share too that this wasn't like my parents, my mom, I'll watch your children when I want to watch your children. Cindy and George were not like that. Casey could have left the house and left her daughter with them every night. So they never said to her, "You can't, we're not going to watch Kaylee tonight, or we're tired of Kaylee." That was never the question. So, and that was what was so confusing to Cindy, was why why not just leave your daughter with us? Like, we're the grandparents. We love her. She lives here. Like, why wouldn't you just do that? So if you listen back to the call, that was where Cindy's confusion really was taking place. And Joseph, I absolutely agree with you regarding Tony, and actually Amanda. I love you. Here's what we're talking about: a 19-year-old girl who's like kind of like caught. She doesn't know what's going to happen with her life. She's in jail, and so the first person she wants to talk to is her boyfriend. Like, that never surprised me. Who knows what we would do, but it didn't seem like any like red herring. It just seemed like something that, well, like, let me talk to my boyfriend, whatever the reasons were. That was my first thought. But there were a lot of conversations in jail between Cindy, George, and Casey that were interesting and could really be picked apart by what was being said and what was not being said. And so, very interesting. So I'm glad you brought that up, Amanda. Anyone else?
Adrian,
If it's
Adrian,
so,
I'm curious to hear. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, I'll jump in after you. Go ahead.
Okay, I just had I'm curious, do you feel like Cindy I mean there was some points in the case where or just even in time where Cindy was she was like covering for her. Like, didn't she say she searched the chloroform information? She was actually looking for a plant outside and it was something to do with chlorophyll, and somehow chloroform came up. I could have swore I heard that Cindy was saying that that was her.
So, Amanda, you are right. And here's the thing with Cindy. Imagine your daughter, and honestly, to this day, Sydney still, and if you watch the documents, right, she had a hard time with her relationship and having to, really realize, oh my God. So at first, she was just trying to like figure out, like, no, maybe it was her, maybe she was as a nurse doing that. I think that Cindy wanted to just try to protect her daughter, like many mothers do when it comes to this. I think George was more upset, like at the loss they both were upset by the loss of Kaylee. But even when you're watching some of the final documentaries, the last few that were out there, you could see, first of all, George came to Daytona Beach to commit suicide. I mean, this was just so tough on him. What kind of kept Cindy through all of this with her head, pretty much held high when you think about them in court, and what, just like I just was staring at them through the whole time, because knowing them, Cindy just was being a mom. And I didn't see anything more of like trying to cover it up to be something awful when she admitted it. It's just a mom trying to see maybe that she could help her daughter in any way. But she loved Kaylee like till the end of the world. These are great points, Amanda. I love what you're bringing up though. So keep them coming.
If the my question is, if the evidence is so obvious, is there any theories on why the jury found her not guilty? Because I mean, it was obvious back then, and now listening to the recap, it's still the same. Like it's a no-brainer. People have been convicted on a lot less evidence. So, any theories on why they found her not guilty?
So her defense presented a theory of sorts that um, George Anthony, her father, had something to do with it. So I think that was probably the reasonable doubt in the jury's minds as to what happened, because they weren't able to say definitively, this is how she died, definitely. This is who killed her. This is where her body was. There was still some doubt, at least in my opinion.
Very good point, Joseph. You're 100% right. That, and here we go. We have the defense and the prosecutor. So, I mean, some of the answers could be a lack of evidence, unreliable witnesses, maybe, the missing or mishandling of evidence. Like there were things that could cause that kind of confusion, but I don't even understand how Jose Baez could bring up all of a sudden that. So the story goes, if I remember correctly, Joseph, that Casey woke up from a nap and realized that Kaylee was missing, went to go look for her. She saw her father by the pool with her daughter limp and dead. And I mean, let me just reiterate, George Anthony was a police officer for many, many years and became a police detective. Do you really think that he wouldn't have called 911 to help his granddaughter out? And that he tried to protect his daughter. And so he said, Casey, go back or go to work or whatever he said to her. I'll take care of Kaylee. And that is what the jury heard. That is literally what they heard. Um, so anyone else want to chime in on this one?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that the jury, so like some of the evidence that you're hearing right now for people that watch the case, at when it was going on, they would argue what would be allowed, what wouldn't be allowed. And so the public knew more than the jurors actually knew during that time. And so, in a defense, their job is to poke holes and to confuse, as she was saying. But, like myself, for instance, when I was 15 years old, and um, my godmother had taken me to the movies with this guy, and he was married and he had 2 kids. I met this guy. Never would I in a million years think that he would kill his wife. This is a different case, but he did. So just I know that you met Cindy and you met George, but that doesn't mean that George is a saint or that Cindy is a saint, and that, like, first say that why would she call the boyfriend? Well, I think if you're like scared or something, you would call the boyfriend. I think that very much this could have been an accident. I don't think that she was intended to be murdered, but I do believe that Casey and her father covered this up somehow. Even his interviews at which people can see at the police station were strange. And Casey was lying over and over and over. Why wasn't she looking? And then why wouldn't somebody who was a police officer call 911? Because they were, like, a police officer, and they know what they're going to do. So, like, unless it doesn't even matter how well you know somebody. But I think I was listening to this from the beginning, and the fact that you had these postcards made up, and you saw them in person, and like you said, like, I totally agree with you that Cindy, she was looking for, because they went back and they found out that, yep, she wasn't at work. And so they had to prove this. Actually, they never charged her with perjury or anything, but that she wasn't at work when she first was said that she was, and she was looking for that in the computer too. And this was also, I'd say George, Cindy, and Casey, they all supposedly had different passwords on the computer. It was a family computer, so it's not like almost like right now where a whole family would share a computer. Everybody's got their own devices and stuff. So they had to, like, really make sure, like, who was looking for the stuff. And so she was covering for her daughter, because a lot of people say, well, she already lost her granddaughter. She didn't want to lose the daughter. Nobody can definitively say that she was or wasn't abused by her father. And like I said, I can just go by my own thing of meeting someone, and then knowing them, and then the person marrying this person who she had 5 kids with her husband, and then he had 2 children, but he killed his wife. If you look up the comic book Murder, that might be something you guys want to do someday or whatever. So I had a few nights out and spent time with a murderer myself. Would never have known. So you can't, like you say, well, I know their heart. I would feel that I knew this person's heart, but you just don't know what people will do or why. If someone panicked, you know, uh, I don't know that I believe. I remember, thinking there was a drowning, and that could happen, and that's not too scary to be afraid of. Or even if she was given some Xanax, or given Benadryl, or something like that, the chloroform, like you say, it was meant not. It's not meant to kill anybody, and no nurse is going to, like, look that up for anything. And how would I know? Because I am one. You're not going to do that. She's saying for gardening, chloroform, or that they were so close. She was just trying to, at that point, maybe help her daughter. So I just wanted to throw a few things out there, because one, if you're catching this now and you don't remember the case, like, as it was happening, remember that the jury did not have all of this evidence. And also, while I totally appreciate, I'm going to sit here and listen, I'm not trying to, like, um, take away anything from your experience. It's just that knowing somebody, they could be your brother, they could be your sister, they could be your neighbor, they could be, you want to always think the best in people, and people can win you over, and you just don't know. So this is one of those things we're never going to know. But in my personal opinion, an opinion is that something happened to her that I don't think she was meant to initially die. But I do believe that the father and Casey both kind of knew what happened, and they will probably be the only two that ever will know really what happened. So I'll land there.
Thank you so much. I'm glad that you spoke up. I would love to know your name. So, are you comfortable saying your first name? You don't have to give me your last name.
I'm on Clubhouse. I'm Christina.
So, Christina, very nice meeting you. I'm Adrian. I absolutely appreciate what you said. You I respect you for saying it. It's 100% true. And sometimes I don't have the best discernment in people. I am guilty of loving everything with a very positive outlook. So, I love it. I love that you said that. I do want to take a second, Christina, to actually share some of the jury quotes so that people can actually hear this. Juror number 3, her name was Jennifer Ford, a 32-year-old nursing student, said, I did not say she was innocent. I just said there was not enough evidence to find her guilty. If you cannot prove what the crime was, you cannot determine what the punishment should be. Another anonymous juror, you may remember, Christina, who spoke to People magazine, said everyone agreed that Casey was a liar, but not everyone agreed she was a murderer. We were sick to our stomachs to get that verdict. We were crying and not sleeping, but we had to follow the law. And one more I just want to read to everyone. The prosecution didn't provide the evidence that Kaylee was murdered. We felt the emotions, but we had to base our decisions on the facts. So I really appreciate, Christina, you're speaking up. It's beautiful. Anyone else want to contribute to the conversation? Because we want to hear both sides. Because at the end of the day, Christina's right. None of us really know.
Yeah, Adrian, I just wanted to we just quickly say that yeah, trust me with discernment, same thing. But those are really good quotes that they were saying, and it brings me back to what you were saying at the beginning, how you had to go to the to be on a jury, right, for a, a,
Yes.
a young child. And just think, someone's like mad at you because you're a juror, but you weren't given all this information. And even if you were, so like, yeah, people weren't saying, it's like, well, we can't say she's innocent, but everyone agreed and she was convicted that she was a liar, but they couldn't say that she did it. So I just wanted to thank you for saying that part.
Very good point.
Can I say something? And I'm gonna keep the energy okay, right where we are now. But and everything you said. All right, I don't care what kind of mother you are. If you're a 14-year-old mother or a 40-year-old mother, all right, your child, excuse me, if your child's missing, you're looking for, her, you're concerned about it. If you don't know where your child is, all right, you're gonna go find her. You don't go out freaking partying. You don't go lying to the cops about imaginary nannies. Okay, you don't do any of that. You don't lie about jobs. You don't lie about the last time you saw her and all this other stuff. There's so many freaking lies. People don't just lie. Wait 1 second, please. 1 second, please. I said 1 second, please. And no one interrupted you. We gave you the courtesy of letting you speak. So please don't interrupt me. All right? You don't lie about any of that. So when you sit here talking about discernment, okay, discernment, had she been someone, okay, let's start there. So she's a liar. You don't lie when they're trying to find your kid. All right. When you're out there partying, getting tattoos after your kid was dead, you don't do any of that. She's a mother. Okay. Casey was 3 years old or whatever. For every day that child's life, that child was with her at her hip. Okay. And all of a sudden, that kid's not with her at her hip for weeks, and she doesn't freaking notice it, and she doesn't report it, and you don't think she doesn't think something's strange. She did it, in my opinion, and she's guilty, and she got away with it. All these nice and all this. What we have an imperfect jury system, and it found her not guilty. Okay, we're gonna respect that. That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna respect the verdict, but that doesn't mean that I have to freaking trust or believe the verdict. So, discernment, my ass. I'm done.
On that note, I'm just gonna do a quick little reset. Welcome guys to DTN True Crime Edition's first episode. And if you guys are listening to the podcast, make sure that you, any way that you're listening to it, please make sure you're downloading the episodes. This in itself will eventually be its own podcast, but this is the launch of it. We're really excited about it. And tonight we are talking about the Casey Anthony trial. And we have our hosts here, Joseph, Adrian, and our backup producer, Diana. And yeah, let's get this conversation continued.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Jonathan said. It's while we have to respect the verdict, it's the most likely person, the most likely suspect, in my opinion, is still Casey Anthony. Adrian has a personal connection to the parents. I don't. And Adrian and I actually did not discuss our opinions on this until this show tonight. And I actually kind of came to a similar conclusion that Adrian did, that I really don't believe that George Anthony or his wife had anything to do with this.
I agree. I don't think the father had anything to do with it. If anything, well, number one, the father took a lie detector test and passed it. Now, I know sometimes those things aren't accurate, but He passed it. Um, I feel out of both the parents, because I mentioned earlier, the mom, it seemed like, if anything, was trying to cover for her. So it makes zero sense. The father was constantly trying to say, like, no, there's something wrong here, and Casey has something to do with it. He was the one trying to call her out her bull. So to say that he was involved, how are you involved if you and trying to cover it up when you're trying to call your daughter out? Mom's been the one trying to cover up and protect her child. I get it. It's your child that you're the person's parent, but he was in no way trying to cover for her. If anything, he was trying to open up his Cindy's eyes to the reality of the situation. So I don't think in any way, shape, or form he was involved.
You know, this is what frustrates me because every time a woman gets in trouble, not every time, there's a lot of times a woman gets in trouble, the first thing she does is blame sexual contact or sexual assault. Now, I'm talking about there's a lot of times, I'm not dismissing that. I'm talking about these times when they do it falsely. And for her to blame her father, okay, he was a respected police officer. All he cared about was his granddaughter, finding his granddaughter, and then all of a sudden go to trial, and he's been put on trial, and then we have people that's going back say, "Oh yeah, maybe we can't not consider the fact that he did it. He wasn't the one that was tied at the hip with this baby for 3 years." Okay, when she got up to go to the bathroom, whenever she got to do anything, she had to think about where the baby was. If they co-slept together or whatever, if she was in the bed, make sure she didn't roll over on this baby. Okay, and when she went to eat, she had to make sure that the baby eat. You know, when she went grocery shopping, she had to make sure that that the child had food. And then all of a sudden, for weeks, she doesn't notice her kid's missing, and she's out there partying. You guys are, and I'm just saying that's just for me. When people are sitting here, look, everyone forms their own opinion. This is my opinion. She's guilty as sin. She's guilty as hell. That's my opinion. Okay, that's how I feel about it. All right, because
Did you guys say what the baby died from? What did
what
the
do you
baby
mean?
die from? Did you say that?
The baby died from foul play. Okay, the baby was
No,
found.
but I'm saying what was the exact cause of death? The exact
eh,
cause of death.
Listen to me.
Was the problem actually is that
What was
they did
that?
not have that. The problem
Exactly.
was that they didn't really have the exact cause
Exactly.
of
That's what I
death.
say. But it's foul play. The baby's found tied up. I mean, had duct tape and garbage bags right down the street from their house in the woods. So
Jonathan, let's
But if you
talk about
drug it,
the
if you drugging the baby, if you drugging the baby to kill the baby, right? Then what is the reason
no,
for the duct
I don't
tape?
think she killed the baby on purpose. She killed the baby accidentally. I don't know.
But why
Maybe
duct
she,
tape the baby? I don't understand duct taping it.
maybe maybe she killed the baby on purpose. Maybe she killed. I don't know. She's a monster.
exactly. Let's talk a bit like let's take a second. Let's talk about that she decides to do these docu-series and now they're so inconsistent. Let's talk about some of the alleged lies in the docu-series because this is an interesting part. So the juicy part. So she has these docu-series. She claims that she fell asleep with Kaylee in the story with you, but that was a contradiction because that version of events was never mentioned at trial. Instead, her legal defense, if you remember, claimed Kaylee accidentally drowned in the family pool and George helped cover it up. I also want there, so this is really important to hear. There was also her continued accusations against her father. So she doubles down during these docuseries to say now that her George Anthony sexually abused her. And she introduces a shocking new theory that he may have abused and murdered Kaylee to cover up. Okay, imagine that. So now she's literally they're having to listen to this docu-series, but guess what? No new evidence was provided, and George Anthony has consistently denied these accusations. He and Cindy passed polygraph tests regarding abuse and involvement in Kaylee's death. And another one, she does a very good job. I'm talking about Casey, very good job of portraying herself as misled and powerless. She was manipulated by her father. She believed Kaylee was alive during the 31 days disappearance. She had no idea that Kaylee was dead. So imagine that because that uh, didn't go with any of the lies and bizarre behavior that she was showing. And and this part really makes me mad. So you may hear the anger in my voice. she and I hope you're listening, Casey. I hope you're listening. How dare you drag your brother into this and then do a docuseries and try to say that your brother was touching you too? How dare you? I'm talking to Casey, not you guys. Anyways, so do you think these docuseries helped Casey's credibility, or do you think they damaged it further? Would love to hear from Jonathan or whoever would like to contribute to that part of it. If you were able,
Ad-
Amanda, I think you saw the docuseries.
Well,
Adrian, is it okay if I speak? It's Carrie.
Oh, it's nice to see you, Carrie. Absolutely.
Hi. Okay, I'm watching. This is mirroring what's happening here in Massachusetts. So I'm from Boston, and we're getting ready for the Karen Reed case to start on April 1st, and it was a mistrial. And there's been multiple. They just came out with a new docuseries, and so there's so much confusion, and there's also no. They can't find the reasoning of death. So that's the number one thing, which is the same thing in the case that in the case you're talking about. And I think the confusion I know just by being here in Massachusetts every week, like, people don't know what end is up. They don't know what to think. It's just so confusing. And I think, and then you have the docuseries, and it portrays certain things and highlights and shines a light. It's just, I don't know. I just wanted to say it looks very similar in many ways to what's happening here in Massachusetts with the Karen Reed case. That's all.
Thanks, Carrie. Joseph, what do you think about the docuseries and all of these false claims from Casey?
While you're waiting for Joseph, I'll say this right here. Docu-series, it just, once again, guys, the truth always remains the same. It doesn't change, okay? A lie evolves. It could evolve. And, I deal with a lot of liars daily. And you can tell when someone's lying. And she's obviously lying because her story's always evolving and changing because she thinks it's going to be better received. The truth, is the truth no matter how it's received. And so, I just think that, when you look at this, for that father to have to go through that, it's, nowadays she's claiming that, if that was the case, she would have, instead of taking these police officers to uh, Universal Studios and all that other stuff, pretending like she knew people and people looking at her like she's crazy, she would have told him right then and there, like, hey, this is what happened. If she had that much resentment towards her father, if her father did all of that, if her father was responsible, she had nothing to do with this death, all this other stuff, she would have told right then and there. She wouldn't have wrote till she waited to she got with Jose Baez, and concocted this. I think Jose Baez is surprised that he won that because it changed his whole life. He became a quote unquote superstar. Your star attorney after that, and his fortunes changed as a result of this case. So, I think she's doing this because she wants to get back in the public eye. And I'll tell you something else. I think she's doing this again because that just tells speaks to what kind of monster she is. Because here she is, instead of letting her daughter rest in peace, she is now going to try to monetize it. Okay, that's where I know. That's how when you look at her, she's trying to monetize her crime. That's how I feel. I believe that's what she's doing right now, attempting to monetize, the freaking murder that she got away with. Lynn.
So true. You guys remember the name Patrick McKenna? So he, by the way, the rumor was a rumor. I'm just saying it out loud. The rumor was going around in the Orlando market area that there was a relationship between Jose Baez and Casey Anthony. So I always thought that was interesting. Okay, so after her release from jail, where'd she go? She moves in with Patrick McKenna. Who's Patrick McKenna? He's the lead investigator for her defense team during the trial. I can't, is there ever been another case where that takes place? So she then moves into his home in South Florida. And you may remember him. It was in the O.J. Simpson's defense team too, by the way. So she lived with him for years, and then she was working as a legal assistant or researcher, helping him with investigations. So she pretty much was trying to stay out of the public eye. I will tell you, being Florida, she like went out like a bar. She had a couple times she would go out and the people were going crazy. There, people were against her, right? So I don't even know why she thought she could get away with the TikTok thing. But she claimed that she wanted to become a photographer. She was doing some accounting and bookkeeping, who would hire her, and some legal research. So I thought that was an interesting part. What do you guys think about, that, like, just that relationship with the lead investigator for a defense team?
Well, I think going back to Jonathan, actually, the monetization. So, like, I remember those lawyers. They were so rallied around her, but I think in their mind they were just seeing dollar sign. And just to clarify on the when I use the word disturbing, I just meant like you never know if you're going to come across a murderer. Like I would have never thought. In my mind, just want to clarify that. But the docu-series. So that's just her view. There's no hard questions really. It starts off with her having all those pictures of Casey or Kaylee as if she carries her around with her all the time and she's never and the reason right from the beginning she has to rent a house, she's always afraid of where she's at. But I do remember the so that one's the lead investigator, but the other lawyer that let her live there, and they really took her under her under just tried to protect her, and I think mostly for her story, which it took this long. Netflix or whatever, everyone was waiting for something because they wanted to, I don't know, maybe wanted to hear her story, but that just proves on TikTok. It's like get off of here. We don't Nobody wants your legal services or your help or whatever. And so I do believe, like I had said, that this happened here. And to Jonathan's point, she keeps on lying. She is a very good at this, extremely good at this, like a professional. When I talk about a professional liar, she let them go to Universal Studios, and like he says, it's the home, so there wasn't somebody hired to like do this. Um, but there were too many things in there that seemed it didn't even connect or seem real. That she's just misses her daughter every day, every second, every minute. And the reason that she was out partying or what have you is because she already knew that her daughter was no longer alive. She already knew. She knew whether the dad had something to do with it or not. She knew. That's why she wasn't freaking out looking. The one who I feel the most for is Cindy. She was the one freaking out, wanting to know where her daughter was and the way that car smelled. But because you were talking about the docuseries, I just remember she did double down on the dad thing. She and then, like you said, brought the brother into it. But this is her time, unfortunately, like Jonathan said, to monetize on it. The time they were all waiting for, in a sense, by land.
Is that Christina? Is that you that was just talking?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Oh,
Okay. Sounds like you kind of maybe flipped a little bit. Not really sure, but that's not really that's your opinions. I do want to just bring up, by the way, a couple of things. We were talking about Jose by Jose's. Oh my God, say it 5 times, Adrian. Jose Baez. So okay, first of all, he was denied membership to the Florida bar in the 1990s due to financial irresponsibility. He was finally admitted in 2005, 3 years before Kaylee was found, and then when during trial he had no major national case under his belt. By the way, did he charge Casey Anthony? No, he did not. She was financially destitute, so he may have worked on a contingency or a pro bono basis, betting on future media book opportunities. And guess what? Just like Jonathan said, his reputation skyrocketed. So you can buy his book, Presumed Guilty, Casey Anthony, The Inside Story. Oh, he made his money on those royalties. Then he becomes a go to attorney. So you guys probably know that Jose Baez was the attorney for NFL star Aaron Hernandez, sorry about that, defend him in the double murder trial, not guilty. Harry Weinstein, he joined the defense team in 2019. And also, he briefly represented rapper YNW Melly. So I couldn't get the exact amount, but it's believed that he moved into the multi-million dollar income bracket following Casey due to book deals, paid media appearance, and major criminal defense retainer. So I thought that's a really like it's such an interesting part of all of this. So in essence, Casey Anthony made her attorney a celebrity and a star and wealthy.
Yeah, absolutely, Adrian. This case put Jose Baez on the map for sure, and he definitely made a lot of money off of it and gained a lot of clout and definitely gained a lot of clients in the future, a lot of high-profile clients. And just to make a point about Casey Anthony's parents, I know that some people have the opinion that it seemed like they were covering up for her. I think that no parent wants to believe that their child would be responsible for their grandchild's death. So I think there's, an aspect of that to it where you don't really want to believe that. And also, it's this June or July will mark 14 years since the verdict came down. So, if authorities had any belief that Casey Anthony's parents were involved in this and had evidence of that and had a case, it's been 14 years and they have not been arrested or charged with anything in connection with this case, to my knowledge.
Thank you, Joseph, for saying that.
I think
And
y'all overlooking the fact that this young lady, pardon me, can you hear me?
oh yeah, I
Hello?
disagree. I don't think that we are looking over that fact to God. I'm glad you're speaking up, but I don't. We mentioned that many times, and I even read why the jurors' response. We definitely get that, and but we want to also be clear
No,
where
but
she is today and what's taking place. Oh, go ahead.
I'm saying like, yeah, it seems like y'all argument, right? The overall argument is that she really is guilty, but she was found not guilty. And so something about this case, it just sounds funny. It's just a lot of inconsistencies, right? We talk about the chloroform, we talk about the duct tape, and now you enter Xanax into the equation. Then she's saying that the father drowned the baby. All of these different things. This is all over the place, right? And you saying that they don't have any conclusive reason why the person died, why the baby died. It's just so many inconsistencies. So I think there's more to this case than just what's being presented today. And maybe y'all made me want to look into this case a little further.
That's exactly what we were hoping to do, actually, to God. So that's a good thing. So thank you, because we do want, it's I don't want to say crazy story, but it just shows you that it has to be the burden of proof. So it has, and that is exactly what happened. There was not enough proof. The weather really hurt. There was not enough evidence on little Kaylee's body due to what I had just said before about the weather and the animals and all of that. So it was only when the land was starting to dry a little bit that they were able to find the body, but it was just so decomposed. There was not much evidence. So you're 100% right, DeGod. And that you're not right in your, like, I don't believe your opinion, of course, because I do believe George is Cindy Anthony, and but and I do. If you guys don't mind, let me just take a second, just in case George and Cindy Anthony happen to listen to this video. I love you both. Please reach out to me. I haven't changed my phone number. Reach out to me, please. Thank you. Back to you, Joseph.
Yeah, and I think, DeGod, you bring up a good point about all the twists and turns and all the lies. I think that actually worked to Casey Anthony's benefit at trial. I think there were so many lies, it was so convoluted, it went in so many different directions that I think that is what created enough doubt in the jury's minds to find her not guilty.
Do you all think that the way she looked helped her at trial? She had this young, innocent look, and I think, I mean, if you look throughout her life, even with how she got a lawyer, it seems that she uses sex or sex appeal or use what she got to get what she wants. So, do you think that could have helped her just the way she looked at trial?
Two, yes, 100%. Casey is a very beautiful girl with a great figure. I kind of said that at the beginning. And that's very difficult when you're watching. You want her to be innocent. And then, the trial reading, she played a good part in my mind, in my opinion. She played a good part. But yes, There's no question about it that, and I'm sure that her defense team saw that too. You have to be blind, right, to not see her beauty. Um, on the outside, you know what? It's a reminder to all of us. You can be beautiful on the outside and really ugly on the inside, like on the inside. So that is 100%. And I don't know if the jury that if that affected the jury, but it actually affected the whole trial itself, and the people that were watching the trial, and people were fascinated by it, and so all of that, yes. But then you know what's interesting too? That was kind of like the initial thought, but then as the trial got on, her ugliness actually kind of came out, because I remember seeing a lot of pictures of her where they made her ugly. People wanted people not to see her pretty. They wanted to see her ugly. So there was like the reporters and the different pictures, when you get a bad angle and you make someone look bad. So I don't think that it actually affected the jurors themselves. I think that they did their job as the best that they could with the information that they had. But I think that the press and the media, I think that was weird. But at the end, as I said to, everyone was so upset. So if you go back and you watch the video of actually when it was announced that she was not guilty of the murder, people all over the world were like, "What the hell?" They were so upset, murderer, murderer. And now, guess what? Cindy and George Anthony have to deal with. Now they've got them on, like, not on their property, of course, because that would be a problem, but they're on that public property, on the sidewalk and in the street, making signs. And so George and Sydney, just to give an update, at one point they sold their home. And by the way, their lovely son, was pregnant at the time. He was getting married. They have a whole nother, child that they're trying to deal with. So we were talking about George, Cindy, and Casey, but I don't want you to forget the brother who had the baby. They ended up moving because at this point, after the whole thing, it was just way too tough for them to stay anywhere. And I think that most people actually believe George and Cindy. And I would love for you guys to, you know what, you could reach out to me if you can find at least up to 20 articles where someone wrote in about that they thought that George and Cindy Anthony were guilty. I would love to see that. So if you do have that, please send that to us. We would love that. So back to you, Joseph.
Yeah, so does anyone else have any opinions or thoughts about the verdict, or any questions about the case in general?
So I didn't hear about the docuseries until tonight, and I just wanted to say I don't want people to conflate it when they see it. Like my opinion is that she is guilty as well and should have been found guilty. But any other thing she's saying about any molestation or anything she may have experienced from family members, I don't think anyone should discount that. You don't know what went on in that home. You don't know what lengths those parents went to protect the family name, the reputation, and anything else. So she may have suffered in other areas, but I think that's separate from what we're discussing here.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Nurse Cher, for bringing that up. Go ahead, Joseph.
No, yeah, that is true. We really we don't know. And unfortunately, Casey Anthony has, self-admitted that she has lied over and over again about a lot of things in the past. She's exaggerated things. That's one of the things that she kind of jumps right in at the jump of the documentary series, is just owning that she has lied so much. So, with the story being so convoluted and so many lies being told, unfortunately, it is difficult for people to take her seriously when she says things.
Hey,
Let's
Joseph, I have a
let's
question for the room. I really, this one I really want to hear. So, do you think that there should be a legal limit on how long someone could delay reporting a child missing? This is an open question. I mean, I'd love for Joseph to answer it first, but I'm going to say it one more time just so you hear me. Should there be a legal limit on how long someone can delay reporting a child missing?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, to have a child go missing for 30 days and go unreported, that's insane. There should absolutely be a limit.
Oh, it was 30 days before she reported her missing.
Yeah, I
Yep.
believe it was 30 days. Yeah.
When she finally told the truth to her mother. So her mother was freaking out and made the phone call. Yep, that's how long.
Christina, what do you think? Do you think there should be a legal limit?
I want to say yes. Like, especially if you have family or grandparents, like, and they did all the right, she did all the right things. When I like say Cindy, like the other person said, don't discount what happened in the family. But I do believe Cindy. I mean, I just remember that phone call. I remember hearing it and in her voice. Plus how the car smelt. She was panicking. She was, because she had been told all those other lies. But she said, show me a picture. Let me have a video with her. Let me talk to her on the phone. Just anything. And yeah, obviously she couldn't, right? So she was completely left in the dark, in my personal opinion. And yes, I do believe that Casey had some. I never flipped on that. I was just sort of saying that you never know, when you meet the parents, like, and that's what I meant, like what's going on in the house or whatever with the father. That something about that just didn't seem right to me. But a legal limit, because then somebody, what if you don't have other family? What if I get into like all these like hypotheticals, but for sure, like, I think the mother just believed her. But she was pressing her and pressing her. I believe that the interviews later that, she obviously was constantly asking, where is her grandbaby? And but what if you don't have somebody, but okay, so take out all my what ifs, then yes. But I don't know how that would work, but yeah.
So, Christina,
Sure.
thank you. Joseph, I have a question for you. Do you think the media coverage helped or harmed the pursuit of justice?
That is a great question. I think that, you know, I don't really know. Honestly, the media coverage was very negative towards Casey Anthony. It painted her very much as guilty. It painted her as an irresponsible mom, partying, boozing as her daughter's gone missing. So I think, I don't know. The picture that was presented in the media was ultimately not enough um, to get her convicted. She was found not guilty.
Diane and Joseph, do you mind if I ask? I'd like to ask Marty, too, and DeGod that question. Do we have enough time, Diana?
Oh, we're totally good on time.
Cool,
Absolutely.
cool. Marty, are you there? Can you unmic if you're there? Okay, so two. Let me ask the question to you. Do you think the media coverage helped or harmed the pursuit of justice?
It definitely hurt because I mean it's obvious that she did it. So the media coverage didn't do anything to help get her convicted because I mean I've just remembered that she waited 30 days to report her missing. Like I don't know. I don't know how the jury got this one wrong, but they definitely got it wrong.
Okay, I appreciate that. DeGod, do you want to go and answer that question?
I mean, I guess the media coverage they painted her as a killer, but for some reason, whatever was said in that court, they swayed the jury otherwise. So I don't know. It may be some things that we don't know that may have been covered in the case. That's all I can say. But I also can say that this case just sounds fishy beyond what's being presented here. I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry. We hear you. It smells like a fish. Hey, Nurse Cher, are you able to unmic and answer the question if you think the media coverage helped or harmed the pursuit of justice?
Yeah, I don't think it had any impact on it. Honestly, I think the general court of general opinion. I think we're all kind of on the same page here with this, with the exception of the jurors. So, and probably a few other people. But I think everyone saw exactly what they needed to see in the media, which, like the sinister eyes, the way she was laughing, like her mannerisms led people to feel the way they felt about it, plus the facts about the case.
Killer
So,
points, Nurse Cher. Okay,
yeah.
wait, Nurse Cher, don't go anywhere. Just keep your mic open for a second. What
Mhm.
do you think about the legal limit? So, do you think that there should be a legal limit on how long someone could delay reporting a child missing?
Absolutely. And I don't know what that legal limit should be, but like, maybe a couple days max. max, and that's if the person's like in shock and just there like hugging the body or something and doesn't know what to do. Like I can't imagine. I can't. I just can't imagine any length of time where my kids are suffering or not here, and I'm not doing any and everything I can to fix it or get the police helping with whoever did do it if I'm not involved.
Okay, thank you so much. Sorry, Joseph. I just want. Did anyone else want to answer those questions?
Well, as far as the legal limit, I mean, no, I don't mean I don't know what that would be determined. I mean, I just think it's just insane the way she went about her business, and waited 30 days even before it even came out. I mean, it had to be the mother that pushed the issue to get it to the police. And in reading what the jurors, because I understand what the guy is saying, and reading what one of the jurors did when he spoke to people, he said, generally, none of us liked Casey Anthony at all. She seemed like a horrible person, but the prosecutors did not give us enough evidence to convict. They gave us a lot of stuff that makes us think she probably did something wrong, but not beyond a reasonable doubt. And that's very important because of the fact that the burden of proof is always on the prosecution. And what's supposed to happen in the courtroom is when the defendant comes in, they're supposed to be a blank slate to the jury, where the jury have no preconceived notions of what's going on, and they're supposed to weigh the evidence as presented. So it looked like the prosecution threw a lot of things at the jury and confused the jury and did not stick on the matter of what they were trying to truly prove.
Interesting. I have a question for you. So before are you in the room? Just make sure on mic and let me know you're there.
Adrian, I have a comment for Carlos while we're waiting on two to come. This is Nurse again. Um, Carlos, I think that's super, super valid. And it makes me wonder, did the prosecution get the charges wrong? And that's why we didn't see the conviction. Because I think the evidence that was presented proved something, just not maybe what they were charging for. So they probably should have more charges on there.
Because she was found guilty of a lot of other things as far as lying to the police and things like that. And then what happens is that when they read you these charges, they tell you exactly what you need to convict on these particular charges. And I think the prosecution, just like in OJ, thought it was such a slam dunk that if we throw all this stuff at the jury has no choice but to convict her. And I think they rolled the dice and they lost on this one.
Yeah, agreed.
So, Jonathan, I have a question for you, Jonathan Bing. So, before we got on here, I was bragging about my TV, and I was told about A&E and the first 48 hours. So, I'd love to hear your thoughts because that delay in reporting Kaylee missing really hurt, right? Because isn't that 24 to 48 hours absolutely critical to a child survival and missing persons case? Do you think we should have a legal limit?
I think they say the first 48, right? Is if you don't solve it in the first 48, once again, you can't go weeks without your child being around you. So I think it was a legal limit. I think you should report your kid missing. I mean, if you don't, guys, that makes her complicit in her death within itself, not reporting her missing. And then lying, guys. And let's just say this right here. She also lied to the mother. She when the mother asked about the kid, she lied to the mother, guys. And so when you guys are saying, some of the things you're saying, and Krista was saying something like, "Hey, she actually, the father could have been complicit. She could have been covering up for the father. She lied to the mother. She lied to the father when the father questioned her. Remember that she lied to the father. So she wouldn't have to lie to the father if the father was, and so um I stand by that. I think that she is guilty, very guilty. And that's my belief, that's my opinion. Okay. And she lied to everyone. That she lied to the police, she lied to her mother, she lied to her father, she lied to them together, and she lied to everyone else regarding, and everyone got a different story.
Thanks,
Everyone got a
Jonathan. Oh, sorry. I thought you were done. Go ahead.
including the boy. Go ahead, including the boyfriend. I'm done.
Out of everything horrible, something good. So let me just explain to you that there is Kaylee's Law, and let me explain what it is and why it exists. It was proposed after the public outcry over the trial. People were especially outraged, just like all of you, that she waited 31 days to report her daughter, Kaylee, missing and not being criminally charged for that delay. So the law was named in memory of Kaylee Marie Anthony. So what it is, And it varies state by state, obviously, but the core components include a timely report of missing child. So parents or legal guardians must report a child, usually under the age of 12 or 16, again, depending on the state, missing within a certain time frame, typically 24 hours. Some versions even require a report within 2 hours if a child dies unexpectedly. There's a penalty for failing to report. So, failing to report can result in a felony charge, including prison time. And this applies to parents, legal guardians, or caretakers responsible for the child's welfare. I will just let me tell you the states that have passed versions of Kaylee's Law. And here they are. We got Florida, Kaylee's home state, Texas, Oklahoma, South Dakota, New York, Illinois, New Jersey, Louisiana, Pennsylvania, Hawaii, my beautiful state of Connecticut, Arizona, West Virginia, and North Carolina. And this was now the federal version, let's all pick it on this one, was introduced in Congress but has not passed nationally. Lawmakers debated whether the existing child abuse and endangerment laws already covered the issue. However, it remains a topic of advocacy for child protection groups. There is a public response. A petition on change.org went viral in 2011 with 1.3 million signatures, one of the largest ever at a time. So I wanted to make sure we shared that. Back to you, Joseph.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think it is important to have mandatory time limits on reporting a child missing, because if you had nothing to do with why your child is missing, there's no reason to wait that length of time to contact the authorities. You, of course, would want to be out there looking for them. You, of course, would want the authorities to be out there looking for them. And you would want everyone in your community to be helping you do that.
Can I read something else from the same juror who spoke to People Magazine? Because it's very telling about how the jury saw the attorneys in the room. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely, Carlos. Go for it.
Okay. Yeah. The jury told People that attorneys' behavior in the courtroom also impacted the jury room. He described lead prosecutor Jeff Ashton as ambitious and arrogant. He said that one of the other prosecutors was mechanical and cold. But the jury had a different take on lead defense attorney Jose Baez. He was the only one in the room whom seemed to care, the jury said. We talked about that in the jury room. That's very telling because typically, I mean, a case like this is the kind of cases where on both sides, this is career making. If you're a prosecutor, this puts you in a national spotlight. If you're a defense attorney, this puts you in a national spotlight and you get the big cases. And the jury's take on both sides is very telling because they did not like the prosecution, meaning that if I don't like you and I'm not connecting with you, you better prove beyond a reasonable doubt to me that this person is guilty. On the other side, the lawyers on the other side were softened enough to the jury to where they were more believable, evidently, with how I guess how they felt. And he was the only person that really cared about the facts in the case or the case overall. And to me, that's very telling. I don't know if anybody else can feel the same way.
Yeah, it's very interesting how dynamics inside the courtroom with the teams can actually really heavily influence the jury at times. A lot of the time, they'll say that the prosecution needs to almost make the story like engaging in a way where the jury will even pay attention to it. So in these court cases, it's it's not just about the facts of the case and the evidence. There's a lot of other dynamics at play that influence these verdicts.
There's one person I wanted to
And the
hear
juror
about.
also,
Oops. Go, Carlos, hold on for a second. I did want to ask if Grant is unable, if Grant, are you able to unmic? I'd love to hear your thoughts about the reporting time.
Well, have you guys discussed the issue here yet?
Interesting. So bring it up.
Well, first of all, I think she's guilty. You guys know I was playing earlier, right?
Oh, no, I didn't go to the Grant School of Playing. I'm sorry. I'll take
Yeah,
that course.
yeah. So, if she was black, do you guys think she would have been convicted?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're all, I know me, I'm like breathing. I can't even answer that myself because I didn't even
I
think
can't
that.
believe y'all hadn't brought up the racist.
No, I didn't even think that way. Thank you, Nurse Cher. I, my mind did not go there. Anyone
5
else
years
want to?
ago, maybe, but I think that the temperature of the country right now, no, I don't think so.
You think if she was black or brown, she would have gotten off even today?
With all the lies, you know damn well, no, Grant.
I don't believe she'd have got off either.
Not only that, I feel like the media would have spun that a lot different too. It would have been a
I mean,
young mother out of wedlock, and like they would have just painted a whole different picture about her. There wouldn't have been the nice persona that they gave Casey Anthony to. That's not what our media does.
You know what's really interesting about, and thank you for joining us, Grant. What he's saying, I don't know that we covered the jurors, right? And so just to give you guys a quick summary of the jurors. So it looks like that obviously the 12 plus the five alternates, right? And so the 12 acting jurors, seven of them were females, five males, 10 white, two African American. Parental status is confirmed on six jurors, and the other six, either there was no mention of them being parents, or they were not parents. Alternates, in that category, we had two females, three males, three white, two likely white, and no confirmation that they were parents. None specifically mentioned having children at all. So I just wanted to give you guys a little background about the jurors. And I appreciate, I got to be honest with you guys. There are cases that I follow, and there are cases that I don't. And, thank God I wasn't a juror, right? Because to me, not reporting your child for 30 days, I actually agree with Jonathan. I can't resonate with that. And I can't resonate with going out and partying, even though I will never be someone to judge another person on how they mourn. I just can't connect with her on any level. So I kind of just dismissed this case before it even got tried, right? So I appreciate bringing us back to here. But one thing that was really interesting about these jurors is that some of them have actually spoken and given their feedback post trial. So, since so many of you guys are so interested in this case, I think, stay tuned because we will definitely do our part to see if we can get any one of those jurors. Back to you, Joseph.
Yeah, so I just want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. This was Debate the News True Crime Edition. I'm going to throw it to Adrian and then to Diana.
So thank you everyone for contributing and speaking up. And as we close today's discussion, we do want to take a moment to remember Kaylee Marie Anthony, a little girl whose life was far too short, but whose memory has left a lasting impact on millions. May we honor her not just by retelling her story, but by protecting the voices and lives of children everywhere. Rest in peace, sweet Kaylee. You are not forgotten.
And
Back
the
to you, Diana.
shadows, yeah, look, I think one thing we can agree on is the shadows of true crime never really fade. And we have been honored to guide you through them today. A special thank you to our hosts, Joseph Labosco and Adrian Barker, for their compelling perspectives, and of course, to the Debate the News Network for featuring this episode of True Crime Beyond the Verdict on Chatter Social. To our live audience and replay listeners, we hope you've enjoyed the journey into another true crime case. This has been Behind the Verdict, and until next time, thank you and stay curious because the truth is out there waiting to